To MP Dzerowicz, please.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Thanks to all the presenters for their outstanding presentations. I wish I had time for all of you, but I do not. Ms. Potter, I will not be asking you questions, but you made excellent recommendations, particularly around a tourism stream, where you could bring in some of the newcomers. I think that's very much something that I know that there's a lot of discussion, as well as the thing that you just talked about in terms of a trusted employer. I think that's something that very much we're also discussing. And visa processing, that's been the bane of all of our existence. So I really appreciate you mentioning those. I'm going to be directing most of my questions to Mr. Gray. Mr. Gray, a million thank yous to you for making some very productive recommendations around how do we tackle the productivity issues. You were quite clear around your simplifying the tax code, following best practices globally. You talked about modifying regulations, and then you talked about internal barriers and eliminating them. This committee knows very well I've been pushing a motion to try to get them to consider that we study how is it that we start tackling those internal trade barriers. So my question to you is, how do we get started on it? I think it sometimes feels like it's an overwhelming thing. And how do we get started? What would be your recommendations on how do we get started on that?
Federalism is a tricky thing, and it's sort of the bane of all these recommendations that we put forward. I think the role of the federal government is twofold. Primarily, it is to serve as a convener for the provinces and, in some cases, municipalities. And I think just sort of set the stage for that dialogue and sort of laying out the costs of these internal trade barriers to Canadians and sort of, attempting to rectify between, some provinces or other provinces, why they exist, what the costs are, what the benefits are, and sort of trying to smooth that out, if you will. The other that we've recommended before, and I would still like to see, is providing a public registry of what these internal barriers to trade are and what they cost. Some of them are quite ludicrous, in terms of certain tires being on certain trucks, that kind of thing. That grabs headlines. Like politically speaking, I mean, that's something people will pay attention to. That's people will read, and they shouldn't exist. So I think it's a good starting point. Obviously, it's a simple issue. Trucks' tires won't fix the internal trade barriers, but work is needed, and we love to see